नमस्ते। राष्ट्रीय पांडुलिपि मिशन के तत्वबोध व्याख्यान माला के अंतर्गत आयोजित आज के इस सत्र में मैं आप सभी विद्वज्जनों का, पांडुलिपि अनुरागियों का और मिशन के शुभचिंतकों का स्वागत करता हूं। आज का विषय है भारतीय अभिलेखों में दस्तावेज, मुहर, हस्ताक्षर एवं उत्कीर्णक और वक्ता हैं डॉक्टर रविशंकर श्रीनिवासन, पूर्व निदेशक रहे हैं A.S.I मैसूर के। आज की अध्यक्षता करेंगे प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर सच्चिदानंद जोशी, जो इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र के सदस्य सचिव हैं और कुछ समय बाद हमारे साथ जुड़ेंगे। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं, मिशन की स्थापना पर्यटन और संस्कृति मंत्रालय, भारत सरकार के द्वारा फरवरी 2003 में पांडुलिपियों के संरक्षण और भारत की विशाल पांडुलिपि संपदा में सन्निहित ज्ञान को अनावृत करने के उद्देश्य से की गई। भारत में पांडुलिपियों का एक लंबा इतिहास है। देश की मौखिक परंपराओं को कम्प्लीमेंट करती ये पांडुलिपियां दर्शन, धर्मशास्त्र, कला, साहित्य, विज्ञान के रूप में विविध ज्ञान को समेटे हुए हैं। अनुभव, विचार और व्यवहार में भारत की बहुलतावाद ने विभिन्न पांडुलिपि व्याख्यानों को फलने और फूलने का आधार प्रदान किया। भारत के पास 1 करोड़ से अधिक पांडुलिपियों के होने का अनुमान है, जो शायद दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा संग्रह है। विभिन्न भाषा, लिपि एवं विषयों में होने के कारण अभी तक हम कुछ ही पांडुलिपियों तक पहुंचे हैं। इसके लिए जन जागरण की जरूरत है। जीवन यापन से संबंधित ऐसा शायद ही कोई विषय हो जो हमारे पांडुलिपियों में नहीं है, और इसी उद्देश्य से मिशन ने 2005 में तत्वबोध व्याख्यान माला का आयोजन शुरू किया। तत्वबोध का अर्थ है ज्ञान के आधारभूत तत्व को समझना। अभी तक हुए व्याख्यानों को तत्वबोध प्रकाशन श्रृंखला के अंतर्गत 8 वॉल्यूम में प्रकाशित किया जा चुका है और वह मिशन के वेबसाइट पर पढ़ने के लिए उपलब्ध है। कोविड-19 महामारी के कारण हमने मई 2020 में तत्वबोध का ऑनलाइन सीरीज शुरू की। देश के मूर्धन्य विद्वानों को हम इस कार्यक्रम के माध्यम से जोड़ने का प्रयास करते हैं। आपका सहयोग इसमें वांछनीय है। आज के वक्ता हैं डॉक्टर T.S. रविशंकर। डॉक्टर T.S. रविशंकर ने MA संस्कृत, MA एंशिएंट हिस्ट्री एंड आर्कियोलॉजी और PhD मैसूर विश्वविद्यालय से की। भारतीय पुरातत्व सर्वेक्षण की पुरालेख शाखा में एक पुरालेख सहायक के रूप में शामिल होने के बाद उन्होंने विभिन्न पदों पर 35 वर्षों से अधिक सेवा की और धीरे धीरे शाखा प्रमुख के वर्तमान पद निदेशक के पद तक पहुंचे हैं। वह एपिग्राफिकल सोसाइटी ऑफ इंडिया के कार्यकारी सदस्य हैं, प्लेस नेम्स सोसाइटी ऑफ इंडिया के अध्यक्ष हैं, साउथ इंडियन न्यूमिस्मेटिक सोसाइटी के उपाध्यक्ष हैं। डॉक्टर T.S. रविशंकर ने संस्कृत शिलालेखों और पुरानी सिक्कों को समझने में अपनी विशेषज्ञता स्थापित की है। उन्होंने विभागीय प्रकाशनों, भारतीय पुरालेख पर कई वार्षिक रिपोर्टों का संपादन किया है। उन्होंने सिक्कों की जांच के लिए दिल्ली सीमा शुल्क कार्यालय में भारतीय पुरातत्व सर्वेक्षण के विशेषज्ञ न्यूमिस्मेटिस्ट्स के रूप में काम किया है। पिछले 30 वर्षों से अधिक समय से वह भारतीय पुरातत्व सर्वेक्षण नई दिल्ली के पुरातत्व संस्थान में पुरातत्व में स्नातकोत्तर डिप्लोमा के छात्रों को पढ़ा रहे हैं। उन्होंने दिल्ली और मैसूर में पुरालेख और मुद्रा शास्त्र पर कई कार्यशालाओं का समन्वय और संचालन किया है। उन्होंने विभिन्न स्थानों पर कई महत्वपूर्ण पुरातात्विक खनन में भी भाग लिया है, जिसमें महत्वपूर्ण अयोध्या है। राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर के कई संगोष्ठियों, सम्मेलनों में भी भाग लिया है और कई प्रतिष्ठित पत्रिकाओं में अंग्रेजी और कन्नड़ भाषाओं में कई विद्वानों के लेखों का योगदान दिया है। उन्होंने सरकार के सांस्कृतिक आदान प्रदान कार्यक्रम के तहत उस देश अजरबैजान देश की उपलब्ध नागरी शिलालेखों के अध्ययन के लिए बाकू का भी दौरा किया है। हाल ही में उन्होंने इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विश्वविद्यालय और IIT खड़गपुर में एपिग्राफी पर व्याख्यान दिया। धारवाड़ में आयोजित 2016 में भारतीय एपिग्राफिकल सोसाइटी के वे जनरल प्रेसिडेंट रहे। कर्नाटक राज्य मुक्त विश्वविद्यालय के लिए MA प्राचीन इतिहास और पुरातत्व के लिए एपिग्राफी के लिए उन्होंने पाठ्यक्रम तैयार किया। IGNCA नई दिल्ली में 2017 में पुरालेख पर कार्यक्रम आयोजित किया। आपने इस डिफिकल्ट सब्जेक्ट के ऊपर में अपनी 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 अनुभवों को रखने के लिए जो हमारी पहल को स्वीकार किया, मिशन उसके लिए आपका स्वागत करता है। आज के अध्यक्ष डॉक्टर सच्चिदानंद जोशी हैं। एक कुशल प्रशासक के साथ साथ आप शिक्षाविद, कलाविद, साहित्यकार, इतिहासकार, लेखक और कवि हैं। आपकी कई कहानी संग्रह और आपकी कविता संग्रह प्रकाशित हो चुकी है। कुछ समय पूर्व ही आपकी कृति पुत्र कामेष्ट का विमोचन हुआ है। आपके संरक्षण में मिशन का कार्यकलाप अग्रसर हो रहा है। आपने इस कार्यक्रम की अध्यक्षता स्वीकार की के लिए आपका आभारी है और आपका स्वागत करता है। अब मैं रविशंकर जी से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो अपना लेक्चर शुरू करें। MS बीच में ज्वाइन करेंगे, ऐसा उनका आदेश।
थैंक यू। Good evening to all the viewers. I'm highly thankful to both the organization IGNCA and National Mission for Manuscripts for having given me this opportunity to deliver talk for the Tattvabodh series. I'm highly beholden to our chairperson, Honorable Dr. Sachchidanand Joshi ji, Member Secretary, IGNCA New Delhi, for chairing this talk. And it's my proud privilege to have deep regards for him for keen interest he has shown in promoting epigraphical and paleographical studies. I am thankful to Professor Tattvabodh, Director, National Mission for Manuscripts, and many officials of both the organization for considering me for this talk. As today I'm going to talk about the document Seal Signature Scribes in Indian Epigraphs. On many other occasions, I have spoken on different aspects on epigraphical studies and paleographical studies. I thought, let me touch upon the practical aspect, the physical aspect, how the document can be upon. And as you know, I need not reiterate here, our subcontinent is very, very rich in epigraphical wealth, equally so of manuscripts. And broadly speaking, the inscriptions fall under two categories. One, the lithic or stone inscriptions, and the other, the copper plate. And there are writings on other materials too. I did not emphasize. And today, mostly my talk, hinges around the copper plate charters, which were earlier the document. Literally, they were considered document. Even inscription too, more so of copper plate inscriptions. See, I'd not go into the format of an inscription, which will take much more time, and invariably, both in stone inscription, more so of prashasti, and the copper plate charters, invariably, you find at the end of the record, you find the mention of three important persons. Naturally, before or after the invocatory verses, we get the name of the composer of the inscription and the writer, and lastly the engraver. So these three personalities or persons who are involved in bringing out, in making copper plate charts are extremely essential. And today we are going into the different aspects mentioned in different inscriptions about them. And basically, more so, when did the writing tradition started? That's very, very important, whether let it be manuscriptology or inscription. Unfortunately, we don't have a decisive reply for this or mention in the records, but I would like to share some of the thoughts, ideas, or opinions shared by different scholars. Epigraphical studies and manuscriptology cannot be seen in isolation, since script and language form the basis or foundation for both disciplines, understanding and appreciation of certain basic concepts and fundamental elements connected with both the studies are highly essential. I need not reiterate here, every subject is gaining multidisciplinary and multidimensional approach for better understanding. When we look at the genesis of writing, it's very important. All, a scholar in manuscriptology as well as an epigraphist or some historian, scholar need to look into it and understand where are the references. And we have many literary sources also, which I would like to deal in little more extent because we are connected more with the manuscripts also. So when we look at the genesis of writing, attempts were first made to write on perishable material. I'm just putting in brief. Perishable material like bark, birch leaves or palm leaves. So this we had much earlier, even the epigraphs came into existence. So writing on perishable material was a very old tradition, it's known to all, and definitely it was used as a draft. Before they brought it or engraved on a copper plate or stone, they did draft it for all the final approval. As we submit the draft, getting the approval, then they will transfer it, put it on the copper plate. So the same tradition you see, there were so many officials connected with it, so many terms connected with it, so many officials that we would like to deal a document, how it used to be. Before they were transferred on the lithic copper plate charters, subsequently validated. Validation is very important. So the history of writing in India is essentially coextensive with the history of Brahmi script and its many derivatives and the Kharosthi script. These are the two major scripts that stands out, and Brahmi and its derivatives has a very long history. I should say of 1,500 years, whether it is a script to be seen on the manuscripts in a much later phase, or on the inscription, Brahmi inscription, which I'm not going at detail because our talk hinges around certain aspects of it. It is, when we look into some of the literatures, it is oral tradition rather than written learning that has always been esteemed in India as true knowledge. They held this view. To substantiate this beautiful adage, Pustakasthatu ya vidya parahastam gatam dhanam. This is what said. Knowledge in a book is like a money in someone's hand. In the same breath, we can cite verse from Kalidasa's Raghuvamsha, Liperyathavat grahanena vangmayam nadimukheneva samudram avish. As one enters the ocean through the mouth of a river, so did Raghu enter into literature by learning to write correctly. This is what we get from Kalidasa's Raghuvamsha. There is positive description of writing in Sanskrit and related literatures regarding the origin and history of writing, its varieties, styles, and methods, and practical instruction therein are surprisingly rare in Indian texts. Of course, there are few incidental references in some relatively late texts to the invention of writing by the creator, God Brahma. In Narada Smriti, there is a reference, Nakarshit Yadi Srashta Likhitam Chakshuruttamam Tatreyam Asya Lokasya Na Bhavishyat Shubham Gatihi. That is what said. Had the creator, Brahma, not invented writing, the supreme I, the course of this world would not have gone well. Similarly, while David Deringer, when he wrote the book on the alphabets, he has expressed about emphasizing the art of writing. He says, more than the discovery of the fire, the wheel, the art of writing is the greatest creation of the mankind. Just think how things would have paralyzed in the absence of writing, what would have been our present state. Another statement from Vyavahara Prakash of Mitra Mishra's deserves our attention. Shanmasikepi same bhrantihi sabhagnayate nrinam dhatraksharani srishtani patrarudha chani atah pura. Because men forget things within 6 months. Of old, the creator invented letters to be set down on leaves to be noted. This is very, very important. This tradition is also reflected iconographically. Normally, when you see an image of Brahma or Saraswati, she is invariably seen holding palm leaves. So the tradition, the creator, the goddess of learning, and the god, the creator, it's all that there are some more iconographical representation, which I would like to show at the end of my talk with some more copper plates and all. Being regularly depicted in sculpture with a book in hand, but beyond legend accounts, the literature of Brahminical Hindu tradition on the whole, little to say about writing as such. When compared to Brahminical tradition, the heterodox traditions of Buddhism and Jainism has a different perspective to offer as writing is concerned, and they showed great esteem for written word. That's how we notice the art of calligraphy. The art of calligraphy is more highly developed in Buddhist and Jaina manuscript tradition than in the Brahminical tradition. Among the Buddhist work, which is often quoted by the epigraphists or the calligraphists, is Lalita Vistara, which furnishes a list of 64 scripts in the 10th chapter, beginning with Brahmi and Kharoshti. Similar, but much brief list of 18 scripts. 18 scripts are also preserved in Jaina canonical Jaina canonical Prakrit texts. The oldest form of list which appears is the Pandavana Sutta and the Samavanga Sutta. These are the two works, and it also mentions 18 script, Brahmi and its derivatives. Brahmi written in different forms. That's what is written in the Prakrit portion. So many historians and epigraphists have addressed the question of possibility of literary in pre-Mauryan India through the examination of literary and other evidence. The testimony of Greek and Latin, all authors on writing early in India has been studied by many scholars, but remains somewhat inconclusive. For instance, Nearchos, who visited northwestern India around 325 BC, explicitly mentioned that Indians wrote letters on cotton cloth, maybe with reference to writing in Aramaic. Megasthenes, who lived in the northeastern India some decades after Nearchos, states that Indians did not know written characters. So in which context he mentioned, we don't know exactly. The Pali Buddhist canon, especially the Jatakas and the Vinaya Pitaka, contains numerous explicit documents. In Panini's Ashtadhyayi, we seem to have a clear reference to early writing, the term lipi or libi, script. Panini's date is a matter of complex controversy. As to archaeological and epigraphical evidence for the antiquity of writing in the historical period, we have only a small handful of Greek archaic inscriptions. We may say in conclusion, both the literary and epigraphic evidence for the antiquity of historical writing in India are disappointingly inconclusive, since virtually all the testimony is in one way or another vague or ambiguous. Writing and engraving. In ancient India, the practice of writing the letters on a record with ink, softer material, and scratching or engraving them on a hard substance were popular. It's quite popularly known that before engraving, usually on copper plate, which I just told in the beginning, and occasionally on stones, the royal charters were generally written at first on a perishable material. There were a set of people or community, especially among the Brahmanas, who had mastered the sacred lore in ancient and medieval India. Accession to secular learning of the 3 R's was available to the upper classes of non-Brahminical community. Please note, non-Brahminical communities. Literate people of these classes often took the writer's profession, and as a result, the communities of professional writers gradually came into being even in the early period. They formed a class by themselves. The most popular and common expression for the writer of a document or the copyist of a manuscript was lekhaka, what we get, which also signified a professional clerk. It may be noted that the word lipikara occurs in the edicts of Ashoka, and subsequently it became a designation occurring in some early inscriptions as Raja Lipikara. Raja Lipikara, often member of the Brahmana community, adopted this profession, and there were many copies. They formed a class set by themselves. If Brahmanas did the copying work, both the secular and also religious, the Buddhist and Jain monks are known to have copied works of their religious works, religious literature. The terms Kayastha, Karanika, or Karanin stands for an officer belonging to Karana. Karana, it's very known, the office of administration. Vigneshwara explains the word occurring in Yajnavalkya Smriti as Ganaka, Lekhanascha, an accountant scribe. The Kayasthas first occur in inscription of Gupta age. Medieval lexicons, Vaijayanti, recognize Kayastha and Karana as synonymous terms meaning a scribe or a member of the writer class. We may take note of the Persian word Dabir or Divira, writer, it stands for. Probably the expression found entry through parts of Western India, which was under the influence of Shakas and the Sasanians of Iran. The text to be engraved on stone, especially private records like prepared by professional writers, and a copy it was given to the engraver, who was generally a mason. Please note, Sutradhara, mason, called Sutradhara, Shilakuta, a person who works on this one, and Rupakara, a sculptor, also sometimes did the job. And they also did this. The mason at first pressed the stone and drew the letters on it with ink, etc. under supervision and guidance of the writer. He did under the guidance of a writer, please note, and then engraved the letters carefully. The professional writer himself sometimes copied the text of the document. This also is seen on the stone for the guidance of engraver. There are some records, the letters of which are painted on stone. I will show you later, but remains incomplete and unfinished. I don't know, they discontinued. We have such a copperplate charter where they have painted it, only they could engrave the first line. All the remaining lines are just left. And that's a very classic example. I will show that later. And the slovenliness or carelessness is seen in large number of inscriptions. It's not that every record is done by a skilled person. I've seen many records, Yatra Safala, when they go to different places, they just want to record their visit to that particular famous place. So just they perhaps engage a local person to engrave it. So here you find, as Dr. Ramesh puts it, the strains, the rustic strains he called, not the way it is written. Even I will show some record of Paramara period, where you have very clearly, beautifully incised inscription, and of the similar period where it is very irregular or not that skillfully recorded inscription. On the other hand, for royal records, a learned man of the court was engaged to prepare fair copy of the text on a sheet of birch bark or to write it on stone slabs, copper plates with ink or a pointed instrument. The text of a copperplate grant was generally prepared by a high officer of the king, and the eulogistic portion. Normally, you see any record, you see the prashasti portion were given for Pandit was in the court to be composed, and the remaining, the operative portion perhaps did by the other person who is in the service of the court. Officer, eulogy. The composition appearing in medieval records were composed by the court poets. Writing the text of a document on the plates first in ink is clearly seen in a copper plate discovered at Kasia. It's a Kasia, Gorakhpur district, Uttar Pradesh, which bears 13 lines of writing, of which only the first is incised, while the remaining 12 lines are written in black ink. And fortunately, it has remained. Fortunately, I should say it is still exists, and what sort of indelible ink they use, we don't know, but it is there. And to facilitate the work of engraving and also to ensure correctness of the inscription, it has come to our notice that some early copperplate charters are formed by means of dots. Taxila inscription of Patika, you see that there are some strokes are formed, but in particular inscription, we find letters are formed with dots, And in South India also, there are a couple of inscriptions where, it just appears like a manuscript with a very thin, stylus. They just engraved without making it a deeper, not a deeper engraving. Just when you hold, a thin sheet, it just appears like a manuscript. There are such inscriptions. One of the Malayalam inscription is there, though will of course little late period. But when you compare at least the earlier inscriptions, the copperplate charters of the Western Gangas or the Kadambas, and even if you go a little earlier, the Pallava charters, they just appear like a chart. Manuscript. Interestingly, Kalhana's Rajatarangini narrates about the officer in charge of the preparation of documents at the Kashmirian court, Ottapadadhya, that is a professional teacher in charge of preparation of title deeds. Please note, title deeds. Belonging to Akshapatala, is a department, and this term occurs in various copperplate charters. I think it's a very huge department where they had to preserve all the deeds, the charts. They restored, they preserved the records. For a similar expression, there are different terms occurring in inscriptions. Dharmalekin, this also we correct. Dharmalekin, Shasanika, Shasanadhikarika. These are the different officials. Very interesting to note such terms occurring in inscription. Shasanod Adhikarin. As known through epigraphs, it's often illiterate or semi-literate stone cutters or goldsmiths were entrusted with the task of engraving records on stone or copper plate. This accounts for the numerous errors in a large number of epigraphs, especially those engraved on behalf of private individuals. Please note, it is from the private individuals. It has been brought to our notice how, according to Mitakshara on the Yajnavalkya Smriti, a royal deed had to be written in correct and elegant language. It clearly specifies. The Benares plate of Kalachuri Karna offers an instance of an imperial charter written and engraved by irresponsible and incompetent persons. It is observed that some minor errors noticed in the record of imperial ruling families are generally due to the scribes and not to the engravers. It is the scribal error. Medieval records mention names of persons responsible for engraving a copperplate grand Utkirna. These are the terms you get. Utkilita. Mostly these engravers were styled as Pitala, Pitalahara, Lohakara, Ayaskara, and Sutradhara, mason, Hemakara. Even we have where the goldsmith also works on this, and Sunara, we get goldsmith. Further, we have terms like Shilpin, Vijnanin, Vijnanika. These are the names of the artisans we get in the record. The eagerness, the engraver is mentioned as Akkasalin. This is a quite term, very popular in South also. Akkasalika, Arkasalin, Akkasale. These are the various expressions that do occur in inscriptions from Ganjam and Srikakulam region. Some of the manuals meant for guidance for the clerks for the preparation documents are also mentioned. It's quite very, very interesting. Kshemendra of Vyasadasa, Loka Prakasha, Leka Panchashikha, Leka Paddhati. See, these are the codified, the words, they follow. It's not just as they do it. These are the words mentioned in Patra Kaumudi ascribed to Vararuchi, this important work. Another very important aspect or segment connected with the document is omission and corrections, which we also do happen in our writing and pagination. In both manuscripts and inscription, a letter omitted by scribe, though above or by side, was generally written above or below, which we do that. And in case of copper plates, such passages were generally rubbed off by chiseling or beating, by hammering, and the correction re-engraved on the erasure. So there are instances where entire writing of an inscription on copper plates was beaten in hammering and a totally record was re-engraved, and these are called the palimpsests. I will show this example where they reused earlier charter, they erased, and there are many such instances. They are called palimpsests. Reusing the same copper plate, where we can see the earlier Chalukyan record also and the late Vijayanagar ruler also. They half done. So this is called palimpsest. There are such records. Numbering of the pages also is met with in both the manuscripts and copperplate charters, where there are more number of sheets. Now, preservation of copperplate grants. See, copperplate grants were very valuable documents. It's very valuable for the Tonis as well as for their descendants. It should long last. Since their loss or destruction rendered the revenue-free holdings created by them ordinary rent-paying lands unless fresh charters were issued in the place of old ones. The Tonis therefore preserved the document with special care. It may be noted that the originals of the records, grants, from which the plates were prepared, probably written on perishable material, must have been preserved in the records office. Hospital I earlier just referred. That's the office where they maintain the records. Now we go to the registrar, some office like that, where they maintain all the records. Very often mentioned in inscription, regarded by as accountant, by others or record keeper. They were called the record keeper. The storeroom of the original grants is called Akshapatala, the storeroom where they maintain these records. And the department is probably called Falakavara. That is, Falakavara is the department, the storehouse of plates. Other officers connected with the maintenance record are Pustapala, we don't know Pustapala, Pustakapala, Petapala, and such names do occur. Epigraphical reference with regard to the writing materials. This is a very important aspect. Ashokan and post-modern period. Ashokan and post-modern period inscriptions are silent about the writing materials, but the inscriptions of the Gupta and the post-Gupta periods have some direct and indirect references. Thus, the Kurd plates of Sharabapuria king Narendra, 500 to 525 Common Era, states that the grant record in these plates was originally made by charter recorded on palm leaves. Please note, palm leaves. Talapatra Shasanena so Punyabhivriddhaye Dattaka, that is granted. It is further stated that the palm leaf charter was burnt in a fire accident, and that it was endorsed by the king himself, issuing a copper plate charter. Similarly, the Taleshwara copper plate inscription of Dutivarman, there is a reference to the land grants made by the ancestors of the king by means of charters written on cloth sheets. Here it is on cloth sheets, pata, which were burned by, again, fire. It's a matter of great interest to note that books are actually in one of the charters of the Maithraka king Guhasena, year 240. It registers the gift of a village for the maintenance of resident marks. Dudda Mahavihara stated that the acquisition of books on the holy faith, Sadharmasya Pustakopatra, that is accessing or purchasing of the books, as one of the purpose of the grant. The Kailwan copperplate inscription of the 7th century Common Era, there is a reference to the writing of the Buddhist religion, Dharmasya Lekhana Vachanartham. It becomes quite evident that the palm leaves and cloth sheets were used for writing books and documents. While analyzing the education system that prevailed in the past through epigraphs, there is explicit mention of various subjects that were taught, both religious and secular. The mention of Adhyayana and Adhyapana. Among the Shatkarmas, the Shatkarma Niratas, we have probably the use of writing materials. There's no specific reference in the epigraphs except ones which were mentioned above. So, though oral tradition was very strong, since the large number of texts, subjects were taught, I think that they did exist, the writing part, which they kept in place and perhaps handed over. We cannot totally preclude that the possibility of writing, it did exist, What does it mean? Adhyayana and Adhyapana. One has to read and one has to teach also. So that is the process. Let's turn our attention to some of the terms with the South Indian. This is a very important aspect from Tamil Nadu with regard to the writing material in epigraphs. The word Olai, please note, in Tamil is significant as it specifically means the palm leaf, Olai, all Chola period inscriptions. Olai, palm leaf were used for writing. It is interesting to note that the astrologer who carried calendar is referred to as Nalolai in inscriptions. Further, interestingly, a document is styled as Arai Volai, half draft, that is draft, Arai Volai, and the officer who noted the oral orders of the sovereign were called Mandira Olai, and Volai Nayagan, that is also another term. We get Volai Nayagan, all based on the palm leaves used for writing. In fact, there is an interesting statement in an inscription, how actually the king graciously ordered that his instructions may be entered into accounts, and the order that was written by the Mandira Volai was issued with the signatures of the Volai Nayagan. The process of writing itself is deserved varied, that is, sequencing in lines. The process of transferring the royal command, first copied on palm leaf, to more permanent material like stone, is practically described in an inscription of Tiruvalangadu, where interesting instance is known through the inscription of Rajendra Chola, state that while the king was dining in his day residence at Shivapuri, one of his officials informed him that 25 families may be settled on the land in the village to be Rajendra Cholappadi to supply oil to the deity of Tiruvalangadu. Granted the wish, and the order was received with the signature of the royal secretary, Tirumandira Volai, and conveyed to the magistrate who ordered it to be engraved on stone. See, it is not the king who meets the subjects in his court, and even while dining, when he was in his, he could take note of this situation and give necessary instructions. And the seal is very, very important, which I will be showing. It need not be reiterated here. To proclaim the validity of the copperplate document, affixing a seal is very important and considered. Dharma Shastra upholds the same. It has been brought to our notice the beautiful statement mentioned, Mudra Rakshasa, how the minister of the Nandas wonder he can deny the validity of a document bearing his own seal, although he was not responsible for its issue. Lekhoyam na mameti nottaramidam mudra madiyayata. That is what Mudra Rakshasa says. A couple of allusions we can draw from literary sources to regarding represent supreme importance of the seal. And the Ramayana, we have got that instance, though it is there. So various types of seals found throughout the length of the country, not only, but they also found the primary source like epigraphs. There are private seals, seals of guilds, seals of high officials and dignitaries and noblemen. As mentioned above, the purpose of the seal is to validate the authority of the person whomsoever has issued the seals and sealings, which are found in enormous number. Normally in course of excavation, which forms a separate study by itself as primary source. Another one is seal attached to the copperplate ring that I am speaking here. When we examine and analyze fully the intact copperplate charters with ring and seal, which I will be showing, we come across motives attached to this like Lanchana. Just by seeing the seal, you can just ascribe to which dynasty the copperplate belongs to. Each dynasty and even minor ruling families too can be read. In some charter belonging to the medieval and late medieval period, we find motifs engraved on this. Some like Vakataka Charter, we find inscription engraved on the seal without any motif. For example, bull is on the popular Lanchanas. The bull is found on the seal of Maitrika Bhattaraka and on the Sonapat seal of Harshavardhana. The Varaha, so the Lanchana for a number of dynasties like Western Chalukyas, the Kakatiyas, and subsequently Vijayanagar rulers. The elephant adorned the seal of West Ganga rulers, and the tiger was the emblem of the Cholas and was placed as suzerain over the fish and bow, emblem respectively of the Pandyas and the Cheras. So the signature is equally important. Signature forms one of the most important segment of the document or charter, though in all charters, there are some cited here which are drawn. As we know, the final stamp of authority was with the affixing of the signature. Signature was usually done by expressing the name of the king by phrase Swahasto Mama. Swahasto Mama. The classical example of this is the signature of the Sri Harshavardhana. It is best preserved, highly florid and most artistically drawn royal signature. There are many instances of king's name with word Swahasto Mama like Bhojabdhara, and in Telugu grants also we have Ralu meaning signature. Sometimes the word signature was omitted and merely the name of the king was given in Vijayanagar rulers as Virupaksha, like that, only the name. This one. And the scribe is equally, if I don't mention this, it should be incomplete. Rather, the scribe occupied a very prominent position in the document, the record. They created ornamental letters and often wrote records with greatest care and dexterity by scribe. It may be noted that though a common man was well educated, sought to avoid writing as the scribe's handwriting was distinctly superior. It is very interesting to note that expert craftsmen undertook the task of inscribing, but official documents on the less permanent material like leaf, bark, and cloth were executed by trained scribes. They formed a class by themselves, Lekhakas. Scribes with extraordinary skill were chosen to work on the royal place as Raja Lekhakas, as I expressed earlier. A Raja Lekhaka is found in Nagarjunakonda inscription, sculpture representation of show. The scribe depicted shown is casting the horoscope and recording the prediction of the astrologer who were summoned by Shuddhodana for knowing the future of his newborn son, Siddhartha. The scribe is depicted holding the cut leaves. A description I will just skip out. So there are a plethora of inscriptions where Lipikaras took great pride in their execution. One of the Sukshma Shiva of Gauda country, epigrapher of the upside inscription, Aditya Sena, describes his letter as Vikatakshara. He calls his writing. Another engraver proudly styled himself as Akshara Lalitacharya. He is called like that, who was responsible for engraving a charter of Eastern Chalukya king Narendra Miraj. So likewise, there are many inscriptions where engravers eulogize their own way of writing in beautiful words, and it may not be wrong to say they infused a lot of calligraphical elements. Please note, they infused a lot of calligraphical elements to scripts in which inscriptions, and especially mention may be made of some of the inscription written in Kutila and Siddhamatrika characters, and even early Nagari inscriptions ranging especially from 6th to 8th century. They are super. We have, when I was holding the office, I did conduct an exhibition on calligraphical element. especially Sanskrit inscription. On one hand, we had Arabic and Persian inscriptions. We too had a number of middle period inscription, Sanskrit inscription, and even in inscription written in other scripts too. We did engage, had a beautiful calligraphical exhibition of the inscriptions. So just I request the to stay connected for a few minutes. I will go with some slides to explain whatever I told. Maybe another few minutes will take to show this. Please stay connected. Please do. Yeah. Please. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
सर वरुण स्क्रीन शेयर का राइट तो नहीं देना पड़ेगा?
Yes, sir.
Kindly able to hold.
There he is, sir. Sir, he's panelist, sir. So he can share the screen.
Sir, you have to unmute first.
Okay.
Any problem in sharing?
One minute, just I'm taking some help. Just
Sure.
Can't see share screen, disabled participant screen sharing.
வீடியோ ஆஃப் பண்ணி நீ பேசலாம். பேசுங்க. able to see the screen?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
sir.
visible.
Oh, a minute. You are able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
My voice audible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the copper plate, which I explained. Intact, with the seal and ring. We'll go to the other thing. And especially in northern India, there are single plate inscription where the seal itself is soldered on the top of the copper plate. That we see there are many such copper plate charters. And the calligraphical element which I was mentioning, most of them have taken from C. Sivaramurthy's book, and this is from the temple, Kailasanatha temple, where it is so beautifully engraved, Sri Kalanka Rahitaha, how artistic and this one. And this is again a Kannada inscription, Sri Purna Varna. See, these are all the calligraphical elements which I mentioned at the end, how beautifully they are engraved, you can see. So I'm using most of the thing I copies. And this is the most, one of the beautiful calligraphical element which we see from the Siddhamatrika inscriptions, which like that we have many hundreds. It forms a class by itself as a calligraphy, this one. And this is a seal where on the seal you can see Sri Vishama Siddhi is written, just a seal with on the full-blown lotus. And this is of Bhattaraka, Maitraka charter, where you see the seal. Bhattaraka is written. Again, this is another seal where a couchant bull is depicted on a lotus. On either side, some insignias are depicted. And see, again, this is the Bhattaraka. You see the seal with the ring attached there, the couchant bull. And this Vakataka I was explaining, we don't have. And here you see the Vakataka Lalamase, like that, a seal which you find invariably on all the copper plate charters of the Vakatakas, written in box-head characters. Again, this is a seal where Gajalakshmi is depicted on the upper half, and the seal. I was referring in my talk where it is so shallow, just with a stylus, he has tried to engrave. It is very, very indistinct. Just with a sharp instrument, he has tried to engrave. This is one of the things which I mentioned in my talk, very shallow engraving. And this regarding how the king, how in both you can see the first half, how beautifully it is engraved, and the second half, though belonging to the same king of different, this one, it is not so. You can see the rustic strain. He just got it engraved, not in a way it is required. There are many such examples. I have shown one among them. And this is the palimpsest, where I told, they use the Chalukyan, that's Chalukyan inscription, and they re-engraved. Again, you find the Nandinagari characters of the Vijayanagar period. They reused the earlier one. It is called the palimpsest, and this is one such example. And the Paramara charters, invariably you see here the Garuda holding a snake, invariably in all the churches, and sometimes it figures in different, this one. And Swahasto Mama is also written with the name of the king. And this is also another chart where you see the Garuda holding the snake. As this is the one inscription where the first, this is a painted charter, copper plate charter, only they have engraved the first line here. If you see here, notice the first line they have engraved, the remaining all painted. They left it just. So this gives a clue how the process was there. First painting, ink they used, and later they engraved upon it. Also, coming to the iconographical aspects, again I have taken some this from the book, where Brahma is depicted with holding manuscripts. And this is a very unique sculpture, Goddess Saraswati, preserved in Mathura Museum. In fact, she is holding a palm leaf, a set of a palm leaf in her hand. Very rare, I couldn't access the original image, but this is a very unique inscription belonging to the Kushana period. And this is again Vishnu holding leaf is shown here. And then the Buddha image, where he is holding the palm leaf and with Abhaya Mudra is seen. And these are the Shaivite saints holding the palm leaf, the hand, and the Agastya, or this Muni, where you have this thing. This is a very rare, of course, again drawing, where a sculptor is holding from Nagarjuna Konda, and he wants to bring it the text, as and when told. He is writing, he is holding the leaf, and also with a pen or something in his hand, he is trying to place it on the record. That is depicted here. So these all box-edit characters I not go. And this specifically I want to show here. It just look like a palm leaf with very few lines, and it gives, when you, especially the earlier copper plate charters, when you look, they give an appearance of the palm leaf. And these are the thing. Again, Garuda. This Malayalam, one of the late period inscription, just when looking at it, you mistake it for a palm leaf or a copper plate. Just because you see the writing portion is very shallow, and just they have written with a sharp instrument. So you don't see the depth in that recording. Okay. Okay, just a minute, just. So, yeah. Okay, with this, I conclude my talk, which I have shown some supportive illustrations also, though I have to hurry through certain aspects because the topic which I chose is very vast, and I hope I have done.
Can you close the screen share?
Yes, yes, sir. One minute, sir, just.
Stop screen share. You have to click on that.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, two questions I have before the formally we will close this session. First is that what is the volume of the copper plates in India? And second thing is what is the earliest copper plate in India? Where is that?
Yeah. See, in terms of the copper plate, it's not exactly known, because still many copper plates are coming up. There's a huge number. Do not be, when we cannot equal the number with the stone inscriptions, but certainly the number of copper plates are also equally enormous. When you especially look into the dynasties like Maitraka, Saulabhi or Gahadwalas, we have to reconstruct the history, their history, only with the help of their copper plates. So the exact number of copper plates known is not exactly updated. So there are large number of copper plates has come, even coming now. As per the earliest, the Patika Taxila inscription, that is the earliest known copper plate charter, as I understand. So this is the two things which I would like to say.
Mm-hmm. So where is this located? This inscription?
Taxila, where it is preserved, I don't know at present. Yeah. Maybe in some museum, but originally it is from Taxila.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I am fortunate to have the honor of proposing a formal vote of thanks on behalf of National Mission for Manuscripts, IGNCA, for the Tattvabodh lecture so ably delivered by Dr. T.S. Ravishankar. Dr. Ravishankar's lecture this evening covered a wide range of important practical aspects of documents, seals, inscriptions, signature, and scribes in Indian epigraphs, and, and would have been highly appreciated by participants attending. Thank you, Dr. Ravishankar, for taking the time off and addressing us. We thoroughly enjoyed this very informative lecture and the visual display of old seals, ornamental writings, and iconography. I also thank Dr. Sachchidanand Joshi, Member Secretary IGNCA, and Professor Pratapanand Jha, Director of National Mission for Manuscripts, for taking so much interest in these lectures and ensuring they are of very high standard. I also would like to thank the participants whose interest in the subjects like today's provide us the inspiration to continue with these wonderful lectures. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.